Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to show you guys my UMPC and micro PC collection. This is basically all the computers that I have with a screen size 10 inches or less. I do have more computers than this, believe it or not. I have like my Asus gaming computer, my Alienware, my Lenovo Yoga. Yeah, I have more computers than this, but this is only going to be my tablets and my micro PCs and UMPCs. I don't have any smartphones on here either, otherwise that would be like way too much to cover. So yeah, I'm just going to show you guys some of the PCs that I have here. Some of you guys may know or may not know some of these computers here because some of them are pretty rare, I think. So I'm just going to go over each of them in some brief detail. I'm not gonna turn them on or anything. That's going to take way too long. But I'm just going to give like a brief explanation of the different models and the basic specs of each. Alright, so let's see, how am I going to do this? Let's go from the top row to the last row, I guess, in sequence of what you're seeing right now. So let's start off with from the left to the right. I'm going to start off with this little guy here. This is the Sony Clie. This is the UX50, I believe is the model name. This one came out around 2003, 2004. It is a PDA basically, so it's running Palm OS and has a full QWERTY keyboard right here. Buttons are okay to press, they're not like, you know, with a computer of this size, you don't expect the QWERTY keyboard to be that good, but it's decent. It's a decent amount of travel and stuff. It has some pretty interesting features like a keychain right here you can clip onto your backpack, scroll wheel right here. Your pin buttons right here. It has a camera you can use as a webcam, or you can like scroll it over to use as a camera on the back. It can actually record video, which is pretty interesting, as a record button right here for video to capture, record pictures and video, which is quite interesting for a device from 2004. Then it's got, of course, a memory stick dual slot, or memory stick pro slot, I guess, because it's a Sony device. And yeah, it's a very small screen, but it's just really small, really light, you know, easy to carry. Still, if they made a computer like this these days with a little bit better specs, I think I might pick it up. It's actually a convertible as well, so you can actually fold it down like this and use it as a little mini tablet, like that. It's very easy to handle. So that's the Sony Clie UX50 from 2004. It is running Palm OS 5, I believe. It's a PDA. Alright, next to it we have a Sharp Zorus, very, very similar to the Sony Clie. The big difference is that this one runs Linux instead of Palm OS. But it has a lot of the same functions. Has pretty decent QWERTY keyboard here, of course in Japanese. Most of these small products here are from Japan. They really like to have their mini PCs and stuff. D-pad right here, pin functions right here, which means like address book, calendar, email and stuff, and that's basically the pin functions. And also convertible. So this one, same as the Sony, can flip down and transform into a tablet, and it's also resistant touchscreen, just like the Sony, which means that you have to use a stylus. I believe both of them have styluses built in, like right here and right here. They have styluses. Because the capacitive touchscreens did not become popular until the iPhone came out. And yeah, what can I say? It's the Linux version of this. It's a little bit bigger. I think the specs are a little bit better. This is the Sharp Zorus C1000. That's the model. I don't know the exact specs on it. You can look it up, the C1000 model, on the exact specs on it. But basically, it's very similar. A little bit bigger, but still pretty portable, easy to carry. I think this is a 4-inch screen. This is like a 3.5 inch or something like that. But yeah, the Sharp Zorus C1000 from 2004. Also has an SD card slot down here, so it's expandable. And we even have a compact flash slot here as well. So it has 2 different expansion ports. I mean, look at the size of compact flash. That's why we don't use it anymore. It's obsolete. But it still takes in SD cards, which is nice. Okay, then we have the Sony Tablet P. This is from 2011. This is running Android 3.1 Honeycomb. This operating system was basically only on tablets, and it's not an open operating system like other Android systems, so it never really became popular. So there isn't as many apps for 3.1, but You can still find some apps on here. You can still use this one, like an alarm clock or something, because it has two displays. That's the main feature of this tablet, is that you can, this is a tablet when you like open it up, it's like, you know, your standard 10-inch tablet, but when you like fold it into here, each screen is like 5.6 inches. So you can, this is the only tablet, I believe, that you can actually fold up and put into your pocket. So it's really, really portable like that. And you can just leave it up like this on your bedside table and use it as an alarm clock or something. And because there's dual screens, you can have different things display on each screen. Like you have the keyboard display down here, you can have like something else display up here, you can have different displays. I really think this tablet had a lot of potential, but Sony didn't really use it to its full potential. They didn't. People didn't like this bezel in the middle, you know, which really distracts you from reading if you're using this as one display. But if you're using it as two displays, then it's pretty innovative, I think. Even with this little bezel in the middle here, you can use it as an ebook reader. Have like different 2 pages of a book like this flipped open. You can use it vertically like that. So I really do think this has a lot of potential. I really wish that other companies would come back to this idea, but so far this is the only tablet I know that can fold up like this. And that's about it. Nothing special, otherwise it has the basic tablet stuff going on here. It does have a camera at the back. Didn't actually realize that. It does have a camera. And a front-facing camera as well. But yeah, the Sony Tablet P, really good idea. Not very well implemented for the time. I think it was too ahead of its time, so not many people used it. But I really wish people would come back to this design someday. Alright, moving on, we have the Nokia N810. This one is a Memo tablet that came out in 2008, 4-inch screen. I think this one's 5.6 inches, yeah. 4-inch screen, runs Memo, which is basically a distribution of Linux. This is Nokia's first device that runs Memo, I think. Yeah, they came out with the N900 after this one. This one is not a phone though, it's only for web browsing. And at the time it had a really good screen and really good web browser, because if you remember, phones back in 2008, smartphones in 2008 did not have a good web browser. It was really, really basic and primitive, and this is one of the first really good web browsers, I mean decent web browsers, not really good, but really decent web browsers that supported the rich HTML text and Adobe Flash and stuff. So this is that's what this tablet was meant for, is for web browsing and using Wi-Fi on the go. Actually, a lot of phones back then didn't have Wi-Fi, and this was one of the first devices that, you know, you can just carry in pocket, access the internet on the go. That's what this was meant for. It also has Skype and text messaging, which is why it has this webcam here. Had like Yahoo Messenger, ICQ, or something. And so it has this full QWERTY keyboard built in here. It's a nice keyboard. But yeah, obviously it's very obsolete these days. I don't think you can get any website to run very well on this web browser these days. I tried it. It doesn't work very well. Yeah, so it's mostly just something for my collection, I guess. Back in the days where smartphones did not have good web browsers, so you had to carry this thing around to actually access the internet and use Wi-Fi. So that's a Nokia N810 Internet tablet from 2008. Next we have the Goal 1. This one from last year, 2016, very recent. Basically it's a Windows 8 tablet. It's a Windows 8 tablet, but it has like all the ports and everything that you would want. So I think it's a UMPC. I mean, I would categorize it as a UMPC. It doesn't have a QWERTY keyboard or anything, but it's, you know, it's a full touch screen, so whatever. Runs full Windows 10 on it. Has more ports than the new MacBook Pro, believe it or not. It actually has full Ethernet port right here. 3 USB ports. Yep, 1 USB 3. Micro SD and HDMI right there. So, no, not HDMI, USB right there. I believe it does have HDMI though. It does. So it has full HDMI right here. Full HDMI. Oh wait, that's another USB port. Okay, so it has 4 USB ports, guys. So something of this size, like a small Windows tablet of this size, only a 5-inch screen, 4 USB ports, Ethernet port, micro SD, full-size HDMI. I mean, wow, that is impressive for something this small, considering the new MacBook Pros and other like thin laptops don't even come with, you know, they only come with like 1 Thunderbolt port or whatever, and that's it. 1 USB-C port. But this one, you know, does way better in terms of ports. So it's pretty impressive. Yeah, specs are Atom processor, Cherry Trail, I believe, so it's more powerful than the first generation of UMPCs, of course. I think it has 4 gigs of RAM or something like that, and a solid-state drive inside of it. I think it's like 128 gigs or something. So, anyways, I did a full review on this one before. This is a Gold 1. It's a very modern UMPC, and doesn't have a full QWERTY keyboard, so I don't recommend it for playing games. It's more for like media consumption, but as a media consumption device, it's pretty cool, and it has a lot of ports for something this size, which is impressive. That's a Gold 1. Next, I have the Samsung Q1 from 2007, 2006. This was one of the first UMPCs that came out. It's quite a big one. It's a giant 7-inch screen here. I think this is one of the most powerful UMPCs still because I have the version with the Intel Core Solar processor. And the Intel Core Solar processor was a lot better than the other UMPC processors back in the day. So this one's quite fast for its time, and a fingerprint reader as well. You can actually expand this up to 2 gigs of RAM, which makes it so far the only first generation UMPC that has 2 gigs of RAM, which makes this probably the most powerful one you can get, but unless you upgrade your Sony Vaio UX with the Intel Core Duo, but for that you need to have substantial modifications to it, and not many people upgraded that. So yeah, this is a pretty powerful UMPC for the time. You notice a split keyboard here. That's something you'll have to get used to because not many computers or devices have the split keyboard besides the PepperPad 3. I think that's the only one. I think the PepperPad 3 was the only other UMPC I know that has this kind of, or computer I know that has this kind of layout. But yeah, this is the mouse cursor right here. Over here, D-pad, left and right click on this side, on the right side, which is interesting because most netbooks and UMPCs have the left and right click on the left side. Very interesting. And in terms of ports, you have a kickstand back here, which is nice. So this is basically a tablet. You have full SD card slot, USB, which is the minimum, I think the bare minimum for UMPCs was the SD card slot and the one USB port. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, this is mostly like a tablet version with a QWERTY keyboard that's split. So pretty interesting UMPC, Samsung Q1 Premium Edition, because I have the Core Solo version, so it's actually quite powerful. Alright, and moving on to the second row, we have the Fujitsu UH900. This one is a netbook. It's a very, very small netbook. It runs Intel Atom, one of the first Intel Atom processors, the really crappy one, 1.6 gigahertz or whatever. This one has 2 gigs of RAM, which makes it quite decent in terms of netbooks. A lot of netbooks only came with 1 gig of RAM. It runs full Windows 7, 5-inch multi-touch screen actually. For the time, this came out in 2010. I think 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there. The keyboard's very cramped, but what do you expect? It's a really, really tiny netbook. Trackpad right there for the mouse, or track. I'm just going to call this the mouse cursor, and left and right click on the left side. And yeah, we have like functions on the screen because this is a touch screen. In terms of ports, it's very, very similar to the Sony Vaio P series in terms of specs and ports actually. You have 2 USB ports in the front, which is interesting. Not many computers have them in the front. Expansion port slot, SD card slot. Not much going on over here or here, just a headphone jack. It's like a minimum requirements. Yeah, all these computers have to have headphone jacks, by the way. That's a minimum requirement as well. No Bluetooth on a lot of these guys. Some of them may have Bluetooth, but they're very weak Bluetooth versions, like the Bluetooth 2 or something like that. Not very good, but like the minimum required, I think, to use good headphones like Bluetooth 4 or 4.1 plus EDR, you know. Anyways, you would probably want to use wired headphones with these anyway. And okay, so this is Fujitsu UH900, really, really small netbook, probably the smallest netbook I know. And then we have the Okio Model 2 and the Sony Vaio UX. I'm going to start with the Sony Vaio UX first, actually. This one is probably one of the most representative UMPC devices because it's the first and probably most famous one that when it came out. Slide up. It's got a slide up keyboard. very powerful actually. It has a Core Solo processor. You can mod it into a Core Duo processor if you have the technical skills. And yep, has the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and everything. Expansion port right here, headphone microphone jack. Fingerprint sensor up there and webcam. 3 megapixel camera, 2 or 3 megapixel camera at the back. So it has very good specs for its time. 1 gig of RAM, runs full Windows XP. You can upgrade it to Windows 7, I believe, if you have the right drivers. Then you have the mouse cursor over here, left side, and left and right click on the mouse cursor on the right side, left and right click on the left side here. And what can I say? This is a very popular machine. A lot of people I know on the micro PC forums like to talk about the Sony Vaio UX as a very capable UMPC, and a lot of people like it. The only thing I don't like about this is, well, the specs are very good for the time, but it's really expensive for the time. The keyboard is very, very shallow, so for playing DOS games or old Windows games, it's not. First of all, because this keyboard is so shallow here, and I don't like it. Very, very flat, and not much travel on these. Very hard to hit. So that's the one thing I don't like about the Sony Vaio UX. Then that's the redeemed quality of the Okio Model 2. The Okio Model 2 came out at the same time as 2006, 2007. Okio Model 2 came out. The keyboard here has much better travel. It's more of an island style keyboard, whereas this one is more like depressed. This one's an island style keyboard, easier to hit, more travel. The mouse cursor is built right into the keyboard, as is the left and right click buttons, whereas in this one they're kind of off to the side here, away from the keyboard. So this makes this one a lot more better for playing games, a lot more suitable. This is also touchscreen, both of these things. I think this is a 4.5 inch, this is a 5-inch screen. And it has a decent amount of ports. It has, oh yeah, the minimum requirements have 1 USB port, so we have 1 USB port on the Sony Vaio UX. We must have at least 1 USB port here as well. Yep, and we have an HDMI port, which is actually quite impressive considering this is 2007, and in 2007 not a lot of notebooks or computers had HDMI ports at that time. They mostly had VGA and even S-Video or DVI, you know, but HDMI was kind of new back in 2007. Slide up keyboard, has 1 gig of RAM. The thing I don't like most about Okio Model 2 is the processor. Processor is really slow. It's using a VIA C7M processor, which is probably one of the slowest processors you could get back in the day. I know this was used to limit the TDP, but the VIA C7M is just crap, you know. Like, I know this one's like thicker and stuff because it used the Intel Core Solo and has vents and everything, but I would rather have it be a little bit thicker and then actually be able to run stuff. Whereas this one is like it's so hard to run anything because the processor is so slow and crappy. Like the VIA C7M is incredibly crappy. Even an Atom would be better, Intel Atom. So that's the one thing I don't like about the Okio Model 2. If it had a better processor, if this one had a Core Solo processor, I think this would probably be the best among the first generation UMPCs. But yeah, the processor let me down. The form factor is really good though. I really like the form factor. Yeah, but yeah, just the slow processor is the one thing. Alright, and moving on here, we have the Scion. This is the Scion MX5 series, I think. It's battery powered. It's actually powered by AA batteries, which is impressive. Came out in the 90s, I think. This might be my oldest device here. I think this one came out in like 1999 or something like that. At the time, there's a lot of handheld PCs. I think this could be considered a handheld PC. Keyboard is, you know, not very good, but I mean, what can you do? It's typical for a device of this size. This is a touchscreen here, resistive, of course. You have pin functions here. Basically, it's used just for, it's a PDA, so it's handheld PC slash palm-sized PC slash PDA. They all do the same things. They can access the internet. They can, you know, get your documents and your contacts and calendar and calculator. Your basic stuff on your smartphones these days, you had to take out one of these guys to do back in the day if you wanted to do it on the go. So that's Scion MX5 series. It's a clamshell, so actually it tracks like that. But just leave it like that. Okay, and over here we have a newer model, the GPD Win. By the way, guys, I have two more UMPCs that might be coming later this year. The Dragon Box Pyra, which I don't know the exact date, but I pre-ordered it, and it should be coming around sometime this year. And the Smock Z, which is a Kickstarter funded UMPC, which should be coming around April or May of this year. So I'll definitely I'll upload those videos when I get them. But yeah, this is the so far my newest UMPC, the GPD Win. Came out last year, 2016. Overall, this is probably the most powerful UMPC here, as expected, because it's the newest. Runs the Intel Cherry Trail processor, a little bit better model than the one in the Gold One, I think. It has these gaming controls here, analog stick, D-pad, these gaming buttons here, because it's kind of trying to copy the Open Pandora and make this kind of like a gaming machine or emulator machine, which I think it's pretty good at. One thing I don't like about GPD Win, the keyboard quality is not very good. This keyboard looks like it's from one of those cheap-ass Bluetooth, small mini Bluetooth keyboards you find on Amazon for like 20 bucks from like Chinese manufacturers. It looks like they took one of those cheapo keyboards and just pasted it into this unit here, which is kind of sad. I mean, the quality of this keyboard is not very good. You can easily find one of these for 20 bucks on Amazon. Seriously, look it up. This is one of those cheapo mini keyboards that you find on Amazon. I wish they would use a better keyboard like on the Okio Model 2, for example. Like, this is a good keyboard. This is a custom designed keyboard. This one is some off-the-shelf pasted keyboard, and you can tell the difference. And in terms of ports, well, in terms of like RAM, I think this has got like 4 gigs of RAM or something. Makes it very good. Intel Cherry Trail, and nothing here. Okay, here's all of them back. You have the modern ports, HDMI, micro SD, USB 3. The Gold One actually has more ports than this does, but you probably don't need more ports on this thing, since it's presumably just for playing your old Windows games, DOS games, and emulators games. So that's probably what that's good for. And so if you guys want a UMPC now and that runs Windows, could possibly play Windows games, then this is probably the one to get. GPD Win. Alright, and then we have here the HTC Advantage. Yep, the HTC Advantage, this 7500, I believe. This is actually a phone, so just imagine holding this up to your face and calling someone. I mean, it's quite large. It's running Windows Mobile 6.5, I think. Came out back in 2007 and has this gigantic, well, this is a gigantic 5-inch screen. I think this is 5.5 inch or whatever. GPD Win. This one's 5-inch, which is actually really big back in the day. I mean, think about it. When the iPhone first came out, it was only 3.5 inches, and that was considered big back in the day. This same year, came out the same year as the iPhone, was 5-inch screen, and this was gigantic back in the day. Yep, dedicated Windows buttons here, as well as a cursor. Even has a webcam here. Internet Explorer button, very funny. Pocket IE, hahaha. Alright, and not a very good keyboard here, but it's detachable. So this is actually attached by some sort of magnetic link, I think. Yeah, it's permanently attached to the case here. But yeah, what can I say? It's HTC Advantage 7500, one of the biggest phones back in the day, and also it's a smartphone, so you can it runs Windows Mobile, so you can run your Pocket Word, Pocket Excel, Pocket PowerPoint, all your Windows Pocket PC apps you can run on that, and of course Pocket Internet Explorer, everyone's favorite mobile web browser. So that one. Alright, then we have the Fujitsu U820. This is the predecessor to the UH900 I already showed you. But it looks very different because it's a very different form factor. Instead of a netbook style form factor, it uses a convertible form factor. But otherwise it contains much of the same functions. The amount of RAM is half. It's only got 1 gig of RAM instead of 2 gigs, and it only has 1 USB port instead of 2, so it's obviously the predecessor. The keyboard's very similar, very cramped, but what do you expect? You know, it's a 4.5-inch screen. Left and right click, mouse buttons right here. I think this might be zoom buttons. The mouse cursor right here. Fingerprint sensor, always nice to have. This came out in 2008, I think. So that one came out in 2009. So, okay, you have a decent amount of ports, but headphone, microphone, SD, USB port. That's the basics. That's basically what you need, and an expansion port. The PC looks like an express card slot, which is pretty nice. And like I said, this one is convertible, so you can slide over. And this is what all hybrid PCs looked like back in the day. these days you have so many different types of convertible PCs, but back in the day you only had this twisting kind. You can turn into a tablet. It's a touchscreen, so. And yeah, webcam too. So anyways, it's a pretty decent netbook. If you like the convertible form factor, then this is probably your choice for small netbooks. Then we have the Open Pandora, very, very similar to the GPD Win. As I said, I'm getting the Dragonbox Pyro this year, which is the successor to this one. Is also very gaming oriented. As you can see, controls are very, very similar, GPD Win and Open Pandora. This keyboard might be better than the GPD Wins though, because they're more spaced out. This one uses this cheapo keyboard here, which is really hard to press. This one's a little bit more spaced out, so I like it better. This one was originally on some crowdfunding website. I don't think it's Kickstarter, but it's some other crowdfunding website. That's how this came to be. It was released back in 2012 by Dragonbox, or Open Pandora, I guess was the name. And the name of this device is running on an ARM processor, which means it's running Linux, not Windows, since ARM can't run Windows. So yeah, it's running Linux, so you can run any kind of Linux application on this, which is what makes it a UMPC. But you can also use it for games and stuff, like playing emulator games. You can play Linux-ported games like Doom, and I think they ported Quake, some other popular games they ported to Linux, so you can play that here. You can play emulators, obviously, so with all your emulated games will be here, Super Nintendo or Genesis or Game Boy or whatever, you can all play on here. And yeah, that's the Open Pandora. Came out 2012. I think it was $1,000 when it came out. But I had to message someone on the Dragonbox forums to get this because it's very rare. It's very hard to find one of these on eBay. If they do show up, they're very expensive. So I just bought this for like $350 off of someone from the Dragonbox forums. I just messaged them. 2 SD card slots here. One of them is for the operating system, which is like a custom version of a Linux. Forget the exact version or distribution, but it's running one of those. Yeah, so it's very hard to find, but I got it anyways, and I think I still prefer my NVIDIA Shield a little bit more, but it's not bad, especially if you like. This one has a full Linux distribution. You can run any Linux software on it. It's nice. All right, then we have another really rare computer that I managed to find at eBay, the Sharp Netwalker, imported from Japan, so you can't really find this one in the US, just like the Fujitsu, only available in Japan. So the Japanese keyboard here, very similar to the Fujitsu's keyboards, very, very shallow but small and cramped. You have optical kind of mouse cursor here. You have left and right click here. This runs Linux as well because it's also running on an ARM processor. So this is considered a smart book because it runs an ARM processor, not an x86 processor. But yeah, you can run all your Linux software on here as well. Your one USB port, headphone jack, which is like the bare minimum. But it's very, very small, very, very light. I think it's much lighter. It's lighter and smaller than either of the Fujitsu's. So this one's probably the way to go if you want to have like the smallest ever netbook. But yeah, if you don't mind running Linux and stuff, and you don't need to run Windows, then this one is definitely the most portable out of all those netbooks. And that's a Sharp Netwalker, I think from 2009 is when that came out. And next I have the NVIDIA Shield Portable. This one came out 2013. Let's see, this one, I use mostly this one for emulating games, so when I travel on the go and stuff, I still want to play some, you know, old Genesis. If you want to play some old like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy games, this one is the one to choose, I think. I like it a lot. It's really good at playing emulated games. Runs Android 4.2 Jelly Bean, which is all you really need. It's old Android, I know, but it's really all you need for playing emulators anyway. It's got all the gaming buttons, gaming controls here, D-pad, analog sticks, all right here. 5-inch screen. That's all you really need. And then back here you have the HDMI, micro SD, headphone jack, micro USB, and trigger buttons, which is pretty much all you need for playing emulator games on the go. But you can run any kind of Android. You can run any kind of Android app from here. It is running full Android from the Google Play Store, but I recommend using this one for playing emulators. And this is one I still use to this day. I think if I go out and I want to play some stuff on the plane, I can bring that one. Alright, and next I have the Vulcan Flip Start. This one is one of the most rarest computers I have. I think the rarest computers I have is like the SharpNet Walker, this one, the Vulcan Flip Start, Toshiba Libretto at the back, and the Ultra DX at the back. I think these are the rarest computers I own. This one's very hard to find. It took me like 2 years to find this one on eBay. I was lucky enough to find one on sale on eBay, and I snatched it up right away because they don't come up very often. I consider this one to be probably out of the first generation UMPCs, the one that's best suited for playing old Windows games. And that's for a few reasons. First of all, 5.6-inch screen, big, like very similar to NVIDIA Shield. Probably the perfect size for playing either emulated games or old DOS games on the go. And runs a Pentium M processor, which is faster than a VSC7M, like the slow-ass Okio 1. Very similar to the Core Solo, not quite as fast as the Core Solo, but the Core Solo was built on the Pentium M architecture, so it runs very similarly. 512 megabytes of RAM, that's the one thing I don't like about this one. It should have more RAM, it doesn't have a lot of RAM, but for 512 megs of RAM is actually enough to run most of the old Windows games and DOS games. And the control layout, this is the key thing here. The keyboard here is very, very well suited for running old games. So you have all the full QWERTY keyboard here, but the positions and stuff, it makes it really nice for playing old games. You even have media buttons right here, dedicated ones. You have two different mouse inputs here. You have a mini trackpad here for controlling the mouse on the desktop. You have another one here that's better suited for controlling the mouse cursor during gaming sessions or different old Windows games. This one's better. D-pad right here and left and right click right here. So this layout makes it really well suited for playing DOS games or old Windows games. I think I ran like Unreal Tournament, Quake, Half-Life, StarCraft. I ran a bunch of old games on here and it worked pretty decently. So I like that about it. It's a little bit hefty, I know, but this came out in 2006, 2007. So what do you expect? That's how these things were back in the day. There's no like Intel Haswell or Core M processors to make your device super slim. Just one USB port. There is an expansion slot as well. You have to carry a dongle though, just like you will these days. Dongle life. But yeah, one USB port is really all you need. Just stick all your old DOS games and stuff on it, and you can launch Steam in it. I've run Steam in it before. It totally works. And install your games from the cloud. And I mean, it's not going to work on newer games, obviously, but for older games like the pre-2000 or even I think early 2000s might work, but mostly 90s games, you can definitely play 90s games fine on this. Like your Windows 95 games, 98 games, should run for fun on that. Next we have the Sony Vaio P, which is very, very similar to the Fujitsu UH900, came out around the same time, 2009. Same specs, by the way, 2 gigs of RAM, Intel Atom, same netbook specs here. Difference is that this one has multi-touch screen, this one does not have a touch screen. This one, the cursor is right here, the mouse cursor is right here. And this one, the mouse cursor is in the middle here, just like on a Lenovo ThinkPad. And left and right click are down here, just like on a ThinkPad. This one is like more traditional UMPC like. Even you can change the resolution here. This one is a very high resolution for its time, 1600 by 900, which is really a good, very high resolution for 2009. I think most PCs, even to this day, have the 1366 by 768 resolution, which was the standard back then. This 900p resolution is really nice. Keyboard's a lot better than the Fujitsu, because this one's super cramped. But that's to be expected, because this screen is bigger. It's 8-inch screen. The keyboard's a lot bigger. It's a lot more spread out. The keys are a lot more spread out, easier to type on. But that also makes this a lot less portable. So this one you can definitely fit in your suit jacket pocket or whatever. This one, I don't think you can, unless you have a really large suit. So you have to be careful when you carry around this one. I don't think you can fit you can maybe fit in a purse or something. But yeah, next time you go to a dinner function, take this out of your purse. This gold Sony Vaio P and see what people say about it. Yeah, it's still like a micro sub-notebook, sub-portable notebook or whatever. Keyboard's very good. Screen's very good. Very wide screen, but just not very portable. Not as portable as the other netbooks for its time. Or I should say it's more portable than the other netbooks, like the UMPC, but not as portable as like the Sharp. More portable options out there. Same ports as the Fujitsu, by the way. There's 2 USB ports, one on this side, one this side, expansion port, same thing. Then you have two slots here, one for SD, one for memory stick duo, because that's how Sony is. So that's the Sony VLP from 2009. Still really cool looking though, like showing that one off. Alright, then we have this one from 2007, around the same time as the other first gen UMPCs, the HTC Shift X9500. This one runs full Windows Vista. I think this one runs Windows 7. It can run Windows 7. This one runs Windows Vista, can also run Windows 7, I think. I think this one only has 512 megs of RAM, or 1 gig. I think it's probably 512. I don't know. I don't think it's very powerful. The processor is only an Intel A110, which means it's not even as powerful as the Intel Atoms in these ones, and these ones are pretty weak Intel Atoms. 7-inch screen, touchscreen, left and right mouse inputs right here on the side. You have optical kind of mouse input, just like on the SharpNet Walker. Fingerprint sensor right here. So the keyboard here is not as good as the Sony's, but it's about the same as the Fujitsu's. It's a very cramped keyboard. The form factor of this one is pretty special. It actually folds down and then it slides up and down. So it's kind of like a slider, and it's hard to show with one hand, but basically this one, basically this one just slides up and it tilts forward. So it's a pretty interesting combination of a slider PC plus a kind of the traditional clamshell PC, I guess. It's kind of like a good combination of the two. It's very interesting. I guess this is similar to the HTC Advantage as well in the way it looks. So this is the HTC Advantage right here, right? And this is the HTC Shift. And it's also very similar to the this one as well, the Scion Netbook Pro. Yeah, the HTC Shift X9500, very unique, interesting form factor. It actually slides up and out and flips up. And otherwise, it's not very notable. I think this is one of the weaker UMPCs that I own specs-wise, so I don't really use this one. Alright, next I have the Toshiba Libretto W100, very rare PC here. It is, I guess you can consider it a netbook. It's 7 inches, 7-inch screen. I think this one, yeah, same. This is 7-inch. This is dual 7-inch screen, so it's got two screens. One on top, one on bottom. If you guys have seen the new Lenovo Yoga books, it's very similar to that, except this came out in 2010. So this one has an Intel Pentium dual-core processor, not very powerful, but definitely more powerful than the Intel Atom processors. These two screens can be used for whatever you want. This one is usually used for the keyboard. So you can press this button to pop up a virtual keyboard on here. You can actually switch the different keyboard layouts, which I think is a very interesting idea. You can pop out a little digital keyboard here. You can switch the layouts however you want, and then this screen is your main screen, you know. Or you can use this one for something else as well. You can actually drag it acts as a second screen, so you can actually drag something else down here as well to do whatever you want. You can flip it on the side to read a book. It actually has auto rotation on it, so you can use it like that. It's very similar to the Sony VLP, Sony Tablet P actually in this one. This dual screen tablet right here. This one is very similar, except it runs Windows 7 instead of Android. And yeah, runs very custom shell of Windows 7, but you can do whatever you want. You can open any of your x86 software on it, and it'll run. So that's pretty cool. So let's see, specs wise, yeah, Pentium dual core, I think it has 2 gigs of RAM, USB port, and I think just one USB port, that's it, headphone jack. I think that's about it. That's all you really need anyway for a UMPC or a netbook. So I think it should have, yeah, it does have a micro SD. I was like, you better have one of those too. Yeah, micro SD card slot as well. And yeah, that's about it. That's a Toshiba Libretto W100. Very, very cool dual touchscreen netbook, released back in 2010. And okay, moving on, we have the handheld PC. This is a very old one. This came out in 2002. The NEC Mobile Pro 900 stylus. It needs a stylus because this one's a capacitive touchscreen. This one is an old resistive touchscreen because this is old. Runs Windows CE handheld PC edition, I think. So this is one of the first, this is one of the older PCs that I own. And yeah, it's a handheld PC, which back in the day meant like this. It's basically a netbooks before netbooks. It's a very small, portable thing, and has a full QWERTY keyboard. You know, it's decent as far as the size is concerned, but nothing special. But yeah, this is what you had to work with if you wanted a small computer back in the day. You had to use a handheld PC that runs a mobile version of Windows, and you had to use stuff like Pocket Internet Explorer and stuff on this. A compact flash slot here, headphone jack, another expansion card. I think that's a PC card slot there, and a USB port here. I think that might be even USB 1.1 or 2. I don't know. But yeah, that's the NEC Mobile Pro. Not a very powerful PC, but you know, as far as the times are concerned, this is way old. Like back in 2002, you had all the pin functions here up there and stuff. You were running mobile versions of all the apps and stuff, so that's what you had to deal with back in the day. If you want to have something bigger than a Palm Pilot but smaller than a laptop. All right, let's go back here. We have the Razer Edge Pro. Razer always comes out with different cool concepts for their computers. This one was in CES 2013, named Project Fiona. We've seen Razer come out with a Project Christine, now Project Valerie. It's all really cool concepts. This one actually came to fruition as the Razer Edge Pro. It actually made it to production. And it didn't sell very many of these because it was too expensive for the time, and the battery life wasn't very good, but I still think the concept was very cool. At the time, this was the most powerful tablet to come out. The specs on this is a Core i7. I think it was the top of the range Ivy Bridge Core i7 for mobile processors. It has 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD, NVIDIA GTX 640M. So this makes it the most powerful tablet that it came out, and I still think it's probably the most powerful tablet to this day if you don't count the hybrid ones. If you don't count the hybrid tablets these days, I think this is still the most powerful standalone tablet with an NVIDIA 670M. Old as it may be, it's just impressive that they managed to fit a full NVIDIA GTX processor inside, or no, not GTX, if they fit a full NVIDIA graphics card inside of, mobile graphics card inside this tablet, which is really cool. And you can use it with these specialized gaming controls here. This is the gaming dock here. There's also an HDMI dock, because this doesn't come with an HDMI out natively. But these gaming controls I don't think are as good as some of the other ones I've experienced, but they're pretty decent. They're not as good as like a standalone game controller like an Xbox 360 controller or anything, but as far as portability goes, I mean, playing this thing on like a plane or a train or a bus or something is pretty awesome. People would be like looking at you and stuff. It has a single USB port here. That's kind of a drawback. Volume controls, volume buttons, everything. As I said, no HDMI out or anything. You had to buy a dock to get more USB ports and video out. But I don't know, it's just impressive that Razer made something like this. They managed to fit a full NVIDIA mobile graphics card in here. I think if they came back to this concept today, I think I would still buy it, and I think a lot of other people would be interested. Because now you have the Kaby Lake processors, now you have like the GTX 900 series and 10 series, you know, which are much more power efficient. You have, yeah, especially for the processor generation, because Ivy Bridge was not very good for battery life, and that's one of the main downfalls of this thing, was the battery life was very poor. But now you have Kaby Lake, which increase, you know, the battery life should be much better on something like this. This one only lasted like something like 3 or 4 hours. If you were gaming, it was like barely like 2 hours, I think. But now, you know, it should be a lot better. So if they came out with something like this now, I think people will still buy it. So, good project, good concept. Razer Edge Pro, 2013, like 4 years old now. Alright, then we come to probably one of the coolest and rarest PCs in my collection. This is the Onkyo DX, from Japan, of course. This one, I actually had to message someone on eBay to get it. I messaged someone on eBay who was selling these UMPCs and stuff, and I asked them specifically if they had a dual screen laptop, because I saw this in Pocketables before, the website. And this came out in 2010. Yeah, the most notable feature is the dual screens. When people looked at the Razer Valerie project in CES this year, they wondered, well, could a triple screen laptop really really work? Well, I'll say, well, of course, I got a dual screen laptop here from 2010 that's actually a netbook, and it was able to drive 2 displays, so why not? This one actually runs on an AMD Athlon Neo processor, so it's not a very good processor. It's just a standard low voltage dual core processor. Only 1 gig of RAM. I think you can upgrade it to 2 gigs. But yeah, this computer was not very powerful. It's basically like a 10-inch netbook. These are 10-inch screens right here. But yeah, the fact that this small netbook with this limited amount of power can drive dual displays, you know, why not? Why don't more computer makers make dual display laptops? If this one can do it, why not? Why not other more powerful PCs? You know, I don't understand that. They could definitely make something like this. Just one screen slides out from behind the other, so it looks like a single screen if you push them together. And if you need the 2 screens for productivity, you're not going to do any gaming on this with specs like these. So you're probably just going to use it for productivity. So if you use it for that, or even video editing, some basic video editing, just pull these 2 screens out from each other, and then it's a dual display. And I think if more manufacturers had that concept these days, they could definitely make it. I mean, if a netbook from 2010 was able to power something like this, it's definitely possible today. So I definitely like the concept. I hope more PC makers like Razer would come out with something like that. And I think Razer could definitely do it if they made the screens 1080p instead of 4K. I think it's totally possible using the GTX 1080s. Alright, this is a Scion Netbook Pro. This is the origin of the name Netbook. So there wasn't any netbooks before. This is basically the very first netbook that came out. And very similar to HTC Shift 9500. The screen doesn't exactly slide out, but it folds in like this. It's a clamshell, but it just sets in like that instead of sliding out. Keyboard, I think it's decent, I guess, for the size. This is a 7-incher, I think. So the keyboard is definitely decent for the size. But yeah, it's very similar to the NEC Mobile Pro. It runs Windows CE 4.2.NET edition, I think. So yeah, this one is running like a mobile version of Windows, so it's not going to have all the modern Windows apps or whatever. But if you guys want to run the old Pocket PC apps, you can definitely use this thing. I think it's definitely obsolete these days. But back in the day, you know, like I said, if you wanted something that's smaller than a laptop and bigger than a Pocket PC or a Palm Pilot, then this was probably the way to go, and it still ran all your mobile apps and stuff. Let's see, ports-wise, it's not very light either. Ports-wise, you have a compact flash or PC card slot right here. I think that's a PC card slot, sorry. But here might be something else, might be compact flash. And a stylus, of course, because they all had resistive touchscreens back in the day. But yeah, otherwise it's a typical handheld PC. That's what you had to use if you wanted to use some notebook. You had to use something that runs Windows CE and Pocket Internet Explorer and stuff. So that's the Scion Netbook Pro from 2003. Then, of course, lastly, I have my WikiPad. This is my Android tablet from 2013. It's pretty typical Android tablet, runs 4.2 Jelly Bean. The thing that makes it different is you can add this massive gaming dock onto it, and you can play games better because of these dedicated gaming controls. The problem is that, you know, it's really, really bulky. It's really, really large. I mean, you can put it into this dock here, but the fact is, this tablet with the dock takes up about as much space as a small computer. So, I mean, just compare the size, right? Compared to my Sony Vaio P series, you know, this thing is like bigger. It has a bigger footprint than the Sony Vaio P series. So, it's really, really big if you add the dock. And if I wanted to play emulators and stuff on the go, I'd probably use the NVIDIA Shield Portable because it's much smaller, has a much smaller footprint. So for now, this one is just resting in my closet and stuff, but it's a pretty unique tablet, I think, just because of this feature. It's very similar to the Razer Edge Pro, I guess, except that it's running Android instead of Windows. But yeah, still interesting to have. So I keep this WikiPad, and yeah, WikiPad from 2013. And most of the time, I just use the NVIDIA Shield if I want to play emulators on the go. But that's it, guys. That's the review of all my tablets, UMPCs, micro PCs, and stuff. So if you guys have any questions, just leave feedback for me below. like I said, I plan to have 2 more coming in this year, the Smock Z and the Dragon Box Pyra. But until then, this is what I have, and as always, thanks for watching my videos, and if you like my gadget reviews, then please subscribe. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll